You know what's always been strange to me? We had Pokemon Legends Arceus, and now we're gonna get Pokemon Legends ZA. I thought we were following a pattern here and naming the game after gods, so, obviously I thought Shinx was next in line. But then again, if we followed the philosophies of Legends Arceus, that means we wouldn't see Shinx until post-game. We can't have that. Throw that damn cell in a well. What's good, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to the story mode. Also, do not throw your cellular phone into a well. That is so expensive. So, I feel the need to apologize because I am vastly late on this, something I probably should have made much sooner. However, better late than never, and also, it's barely late, right? As of a couple of weeks ago, we've officially had Pokemon Legends Arceus for 3 full years. Since then, we have had one full generation of Pokemon and its DLC, and surprisingly, that was it. We are well into the month of February, which means it's only a couple of weeks until we finally have any and all information that we're gonna need before hopping into Pokemon Legends ZA. Considering that this is gonna be the second game in what is probably now going to be the Legends series, I figured it would be appropriate that we take this time to look back at what came first. Pokemon Legends Arceus was the first Pokemon game in a good while to receive, raving, scathing reviews. Now, of course, when I say that, it is with a light touch of salt. Clearly, not every single response to this game was positive. What was surprising was that it was the overwhelming majority of people that I had seen for years play Pokemon, absolutely despise Pokemon, were praising Legends Arceus. Coming hot off the heels of Pokemon Sword and Shield and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it was like whiplash, dude. I, probably like a lot of you, was so used to complete negativity surrounding anything regarding Pokemon despite everybody buying these games, that people really genuinely enjoying a Pokemon game would not compute for me. I was going to pick it up regardless of public opinion, but public opinion being positive really made my hopes skyrocket, and I am so glad that, at the time, those hopes were met. Mostly. You guys good and well know me by now. Perfection is not an actual thing. Rarely is there anything on this godforsaken planet that does not have a flaw. And of course, in my personal opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. Rarely are your expectations ever met to a perfect T. That almost never happens in life. It especially is for sure almost never going to happen when the thing you want is in the hands of a multi-trillion-dollar company. They want to make money, not spend it. And we definitely had to learn that only 2 months before this game even came out. So of course, I definitely had to temper my expectations a little bit even with the overwhelming positivity. And that definitely helped with my playthrough experience, I'm not gonna front. So, when I made my review on this game about 2 or so years ago, I had my likes and I had my gripes. So I didn't really feel the need to do another, crazy in-depth review, but just a quick little look back. At some point during the last 2 years, I decided to pick the game back up again so that I could get fresh footage so that I could utilize anytime I want. Now, since we're in February and so close to Legends EA news, I figured, hey, you know what, it's been long enough, why don't we go ahead and take a peek into the past and see if my feelings on this game still hold up. So, with that being said, I think we've set everything up, so why don't you go ahead, grab yourself a cool glass of milk. Is it morning time for you? Sounds like breakfast time, so why don't you make yourself a nice bowl of oatmeal and, maybe mix some broccoli in there for health purposes, while we go ahead and reminisce about Pokemon Legends Arceus 3 years later. Now, I'm going to go ahead and warn you that I have made a list here, but it is in no form of order whatsoever. Whether it's positive or negative, it is just kind of thrown in there. Originally, I was going to organize it, however, I don't see a point because I didn't want this to end up being a second review. This is just a revisited thoughts video, essentially. So, in turn, what I have listed here is thoughts. So, let's revisit those. Originally, when I played this game, I thought that playing around in these massive open zones filled to the brim with different Pokemon and gallivanting about them however you please was a good time and a good idea. I am pleased to say that still very much holds up. This is still by and far one of the absolutely most addicting Pokemon games in the entirety of the franchise, and it is probably not close. All of these big open playgrounds with tons of Pokemon, with tons of different things to do and see. It's just such a good time. It's so easy to constantly just hop back into this game and find myself roaming around endlessly, just collecting items so that I can craft potions or Pokeballs or grit or whatever else I need. And that's not even mentioning the most important aspect, which is catching and battling Pokemon, which I found myself doing extremely consistently. Because battles are so incredibly seamless, you are hopping in and out of those like in no time at all. And it's alarming because it was so seamless that it was quicker than Scarlet and Violet, a game that came a well afterwards. As a matter of fact, having these mechanics, whether it be battling seamlessly or catching Pokemon in the overworld seamlessly, was so nice and refreshing that not having that in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is probably what helped damage its reputation in so many ways. To be fair though, unfortunately might I add, we are in an era where people like to have things quickly, and the quicker it's delivered to them, the happier they are. So I guess long story short, when the mechanics and gameplay are fun and very easy to access and quick, you're probably gonna have a much better time. Which is funny because the next thing that I have listed after all of that is the grit system. Easily one of the most tedious aspects of the competitive scene is grinding up your Pokemon. Breeding, EVs, IVs, all of that is such a chore. Unfortunately, there is no online battling in Legends Arceus, however, I can still very much appreciate the fact that the grit system exists at all. Being able to just utilize easily obtainable and expendable items to strengthen whatever Pokemon you want to their best is one of the greatest things this game has ever offered to us. It's another one of those frustrating things that I do wish made it into mainline games, and maybe eventually it will, but as of right now, I can't imagine that happening because it's simply too convenient. This is easily one of the top 3 mechanics that I need to transfer over to Legends EA, no question about it. Moving on here, one thing that I will say is that it is still kind of strange that we don't have held items or abilities as mechanics in this game whatsoever. This time around, it does make a little more sense as to why held items aren't a thing. You are catching a lot of Pokemon very fast and very often, so I imagine they didn't do this because it would be super easy to lose track of certain items because you're catching so many Pokemon so fast and swapping them in and out of your party constantly. Not to mention the fact that you're constantly getting rid of Pokemon to make space in your pastures for grit. So, yeah, I can see how that could end up eventually becoming a problem. I mean, granted, they probably could have made like a fail-safe mechanic in which it doesn't allow you to get rid of a Pokemon until the item is taken off of it, but hey, you know what? They had 5 minutes to develop this game, so I'll let it slide. And then, as far as abilities go, maybe it's just me, but I feel like without those, these Pokemon are so insanely flimsy. We don't have things like Intimidate or Sturdy to weaken our opponent's attacks right off the bat or to stop them from killing us in one shot, so Pokemon die way faster this time around. This is not me saying that I'm completely blaming this on abilities though. Pokemon in this game in general are insanely flimsy. If you're not careful, a Pokemon 20 and even 30 levels beneath you could still one-shot you if you're not careful. Overall, getting rid of both of these mechanics simplified the game to an astounding degree, which I can't be too mad about because, again, it still has a lot to offer, but not having these in a mainline Pokemon game is just so strange to me. However, since we're on the topic of mechanics, something I should definitely bring up, and ironically something I brought up in my previous video, is style changes. This mechanic single-handedly turns this game into Shin Megami Tensei. It's insane. Okay, maybe not that much, but it does change up the way you think in every battle. Even more so than normal, it had me weighing my options. Would it be worth it to lose out on multiple turns so I could hit a little bit harder and possibly even kill this opponent, especially because there's usually always multiple opponents on the field? Or do I take the chance to use Agile Style and hit this Pokemon once now, and then on the next turn I can hit him with a normal attack and most likely kill it? Constantly I'm considering what attack would be worth the risk. Something quick, something normal, or something hard. Now, I will say, while the gimmick is fun to have and it does work for a very simplified Pokemon game like this, that's kind of the extent of the depth. You put it next to something like Terrestrialization, Mega Evolution, or even Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, and it is unfortunately a little outclassed. So in turn, I do enjoy the gimmick and would love to see it come back, but I feel like it has to be a complement of something else, not something that could work by itself. But hey, you know what? Maybe I could be wrong on that, especially if you utilize it properly to like buff yourself and stuff like that. But I feel like that wouldn't fly very well in regular competitive. So I don't know. There's probably a couple of things here and there that would probably have to be tweaked before it made its way to actual competitive online battling. On another note, there are not a lot of trainer battles in this. More than I remember, but not a lot. If you don't count side quests and post-game battles, you could probably count the amount of mandatory trainer battles on 2 hands, maybe 4 hands. Obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I still do find it strange. But again, this does take place during a time period where people are scared of Pokemon, so it absolutely makes sense that not a lot of people are willing to partner up with Pokemon. And the only reason I even bring this up is because I do feel like it's kind of wasted potential to have entire clans, being the Diamond and Pearl clans, not have Pokemon. You would think that a lot of their leaders having Pokemon and their entire religion being based around Dialga and Palkia, who are very clearly deity Pokemon, you would think that they would be okay with utilizing Pokemon, but I guess not. Only a select few have them. I don't know, I just find it kind of strange that only characters with like full design can have a Pokemon battle, but I mean, whatever, what's done is done. Now, easily one of the best aspects, if not the best aspect about this game, is how the Pokédex functions. Research tasks are such a genuinely good incentive to go out of your way to continuously battle and catch the same Pokemon so that you can fill out their Pokédex entry. And in this case, you're actively rewarded for it through ranks. It's something like this that makes me fully believe that being a genuine research assistant or even a professor in Pokemon mainline games should absolutely be a career choice. Because my god, it is so easy to get wrapped up in that and just continuously do that for hours on end, especially when you get to a new zone. It feeds to the loop because you're constantly catching Pokemon, battling random Pokemon, and then you run out of Pokeballs and potions, so you kind of have to go around the area and grind out material so that you can forge stuff so that you can do that loop all over again. It's so damn dangerous, but my goodness, I would be lying my ass off if I didn't say it was fun. Not that they would do this, but if they ever decide to bring over the mechanics of seamless battling and catching to the generational games or something along those lines, this is a mechanic that absolutely has to be there because the Pokédex entries and the research tasks are so damn addicting, dude. Moving on from that, easily one of the most important aspects of this game is its boss battles, because that's not usually a thing in Pokemon games, but here, it is. You are going toe to toe with these giant ass Pokemon. And holy is it fun, bro. Not only are you doing regular battle with these things, but outside of regular battle, you are constantly dodging big, dangerous attacks while trying to hit them with bombs. And I'm not gonna say it's the hardest thing in the world, but if you're not paying attention, you can get knocked out pretty damn fast. Especially against an opponent like Hisuian Electrode that constantly has Electro Balls following you all over the map, dude. It's crazy. This for certain is something that has to stay unique to the Legend style, otherwise it makes it completely pointless. But you could definitely tell that they were holding back on a majority of the bosses, because once you hit endgame, those guys are attacking you relentlessly. That Arceus boss fight, what a demon, bro. And Giratina's not even one of those bosses. That's crazy. Regardless, I appreciate this because it's what makes the Legends games super unique. And it really does go to show that when the team has the flexibility to get as creative as they want, they can go crazy. Hence why I am extremely ecstatic to see what they bring to the table in Legends EA. Can't even imagine what kind of boss fights we're gonna get in that game. And then the last thing that I have listed here that I probably should have mentioned first is the graphics. And while I do feel that it is nice to have an actual art style, it's unfortunately very unpolished and very hard to look at sometimes. It also kind of doesn't help because we're so far into the future now that we have seen better character models, so even the character models in this game are kind of whatever looking to me. I don't know, there's just something about like certain angles with these models that just don't do it for me. It's very hard to look at sometimes. And of course, you don't need me to sit here and tell you that the textures and modeling look off for like all of the overworlds when you could just look at it yourself and see that. I think it's just one of those situations where I saw potential when we first saw the game for it to have a certain style that they didn't really follow through with as much as I would have wanted them to. When we saw the first trailer for this game, I was sitting here thinking like, okay, this game's gonna look like Okami, it's gonna take place in something of a similar era, it's gonna look super suave. And it did not. That was my bad for having expectations. Long and short of it is, it's not the ugliest game in the world, and it definitely helps that gameplay is so incredibly fun and addictive that it's easy to forget that the game could look a lot better. But if we're being so honest, that's one of the more minute downsides about the game, because in reality, the gameplay was fun enough for me to overlook it consistently, so not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. One positive thing that I almost forgot to mention is the fact that crafting is a thing at all. It's so incredibly awesome to have a mechanic in which you can make your own Pokeballs, your own potions, your own level up stuff, your own grit. It's so nice. And everything that you ever need is always going to be out in the field. Of course, there may be the occasional like 1 or 2 side quests that have very specific things that make you do those so that you can get those items to craft like a hyper specific item, but that doesn't come around that often. It also helps save a ton of money. So yeah, you can't really go wrong with crafting when it costs you absolutely nothing to get the materials and make the stuff yourself. Something tells me that this is a mechanic that's going to stay very exclusive to the Legends series, but you know what? I can't really complain about that because it makes plenty of sense. Now, the last thing that we should probably mention, and easily the most important aspect about this game that makes me so happy that they included, is side quests. Because you end up spending a lot of your time in Jubilife Town, it's almost inevitable that you're gonna get to know all of the people that reside there. And of course, because you're one of the only like 3 Pokemon trainers in town, it's only fair that you end up doing a lot of their quests for them. Now, this second time around, it didn't feel as urgent to me to go out of my way to do like a majority of the side quests like I did my first time around. However, I appreciate not only the fact that there's a wide variety of quests that you can do, but also that you can get some pretty worth it rewards for doing them. Grit, rare candies, Pokeballs, crafting equipment. And naturally, of course, the more you help out the shops in town, the more their catalogs open up. You're getting constant access to new equipment, new clothing, new hairstyles, and things along those lines. And from my memory, there was never a side quest that was so incredibly like tedious and out of the way that I didn't bother. Like, sometimes I did them, sometimes I didn't because I forgot and because I was just so wrapped up in the gameplay that I just wanted to continue on doing my thing. But those side quests really are optional, especially when they give you items like the linked cable that allow you to evolve traded Pokemon, obviously without having to trade them. Sick ass item inclusion, by the way. Incredibly grateful for that. Do that again. Anyhow, this is like my 3rd playthrough, so this time around I didn't really feel the need to go out of my way to do that because I was mostly just grabbing gameplay and footage so that I had a little variety of clips to grab from for when I do more Legends videos. But doing the couple that I did remember easily getting wrapped up in trying to complete as many quests as I could. And it was a good time, a very solid time, can't really complain. And I really hope that other mainline Pokemon games outside of the Legends games take note of this, because how can you possibly have an RPG that doesn't have side quests in an open world? I can't wrap my head around that, but whatever. Let's go ahead and move on. Now, one of the few things for me that still has not changed, no matter how many times I play through this game, is that the story just does not resonate with me. And maybe it's because I had higher expectations for the story, which might have been my fault, but to be fair, when you have an isekai story like this one, or even a time-traveling story, you're putting a lot of eggs in a basket. It's also possibly because I just personally felt like the general story didn't lead anywhere fascinating or unique at all. Oh, you got transported to this very distant past version of Sinnoh. Help out the people, gain their trust, prove to them that you are not here to hurt them, and they still don't trust you anyway, or at the very least, the town leader doesn't. And would you look at that, just like the original Diamond and Pearl, you're just fighting Dialga or Palkia again. Great, awesome, you beat them, you win, now you're stuck in the past for a while, I don't know. A gross oversimplification of the story. I know, I get it, I completely understand. But to be fair, again, I've played through this game about 3 times now, so I feel like I've done my due diligence in trying my best. And this isn't me necessarily saying that the overall concept or anything like that is bad, it's just that the outcome is disappointing, I guess. And I feel that might possibly be the case because a very important part of the main story is post-game. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's a great twist that Volo is like spearheading every issue that was happening within this game, but like, why was this not part of the main story? Why was Volo never at all revealed to be the villain until literally your fight with him at the very ass end of the game? That is insane. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Giratina is the reason for everything, but we don't see him unless we complete the Pokédex. What? Firstly, Arceus was incapable of doing anything the entire game at all? Creator of Pokemon, Giratina included, you already sealed it in the Distortion world and there was nothing you could do? No hints you could give us to help figure out what the problem was in this distant past? You just kind of pissed off? Sure, man. Cool. Secondly, and I'm super sorry if I sound like a broken record, but why was some of the most important story within this game hidden in post-game? I don't know, I just feel like that's kind of insane, personally. I think that my primary issue here is just that I'm not a fan of the way that this story was handed to me. Like, I feel like there should be no reason as to why I'm figuring out all of this incredibly important stuff well after the credits have rolled. Like, what if I thought that that was just completely optional stuff and didn't feel like collecting any of the plates? Then what? Then I'm just missing story. Again, the plot and ideas are absolutely there. However, I just kind of felt frustrated that until the very end of the postgame, when I've gotten all the plates and actually fought Volo, I knew just as much then as when I started, which is basically nothing. It also doesn't really help that it feels like a majority of the time, any of the other characters, especially the Diamond and Pearl clans, are ultimately kinda useless. Yeah, you guys serve your own respective deities and you don't see eye to eye on a couple of things. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But how are you gonna sit there and tell me that the only use any of these wardens have is getting the stuff needed for the soothing balms, and that is it? Like, what in the hell are your jobs even, if it comes down to me to do it for you? You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just ease off of that because we've already talked plenty about this. The game is still fun and the story is still definitely present, it's just the way it was handed to me. I don't know, I'm just not a fan of that. And you know what? That's totally fine because you might enjoy this story. And you know what? That's completely valid. I don't think it's a complete mess, I just think it's kinda out of sorts. Now, you know what's crazy? Even with all that being said, that is not enough to deter me from this game by any means. This is still a very solid Pokemon game with a lot of really fun ideas and fun gameplay mechanics. And at the end of the day, that's kind of all that matters because it was plenty to keep me going. I love the ideas that they introduced in this game, and I'm very happy that they decided to go with the idea of making this a potential series, which is why we have Pokemon Legends ZA to look forward to at some point this year, and I appreciate Legends Arceus for that. In the grand scheme, most of my opinions on this game didn't really change all that much from the first or second playthroughs. And that's totally fine, because that just means that I still think that this is a perfectly fine game. Flawed, of course, but again, you can only do so much about that when you are literally rushed. But overall, this is a very solid Pokemon game, and one that takes a very different step in a different direction that I'm super happy with, and it makes me really excited. And I hope that everybody who hasn't had a chance to play this yet does play it at some point this year before Legends EA, so that you can see where we're coming from, and I feel like you'll appreciate Legends EA all that much more. But hey, you know what? Maybe that's just me. Now, what's crazy is that this video ended up being a lot longer still than I intended. That's insane, but you know what? That kind of thing just happened. It's gonna happen because I'm a rambler. I like to yap a lot, and you guys know this. That's why y'all are here. You know what I'm saying? We like to yap together about these kinds of things. But I am glad we did this little look back at Legends EA, or Legends Arceus, excuse me, because, you know, 3 years have passed, and this is easily one of the games that people have had the most fun with in recent years. So being able to look back at this and see where we're coming from, to see the roots of Legends before we get our hands on this new game, it's refreshing. It was a nice thing to do. I think it was very fun for me, and hopefully it was fun for you guys. But you know, maybe I can't speak for you, so why don't I go ahead and just push the mic over in your direction, and you tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Do you think that Pokemon Legends Arceus still holds up pretty well after 3 years? You enjoyed all of its mechanics, all of its new ideas, and everything that it tried to do? Or are you on the opposite side? You are not messing with this game whatsoever, you hated everything that it introduced, and you don't even care about Legends EA. You want this series dead. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, yes sir, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gonzo. Thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.